Grand Overseer Trell stared at the holographic display with all four of his eyes widened in disbelief. The tiny blue planet, designated as merely Earth in their star charts, had somehow managed to destroy an entire Raxan battle fleet. It shouldn't have been possible. The humans were supposed to be primitive, barely a century into their space age. "Show me the battle footage again," he commanded, his scaled fingers tapping impatiently on the command console. The display flickered, showing the Earth's orbital defense network activating. What had initially appeared to be primitive satellites suddenly transformed, unfurling weapon systems that the Raxan scanners hadn't even detected. The human vessels, small and seemingly insignificant, moved with unexpected precision, their formations displaying battle tactics that had never been recorded in the galactic archives. "Impossible," muttered Sub-Commander Vex from behind him. "Their technology is at least 3 centuries behind ours." Trell's secondary heart pulsed with anxiety. And yet, Commander Draz's fleet has been reduced to space debris. The Raxan Imperium had conquered 17 solar systems in the past decade alone. Their military strength was unmatched in this arm of the galaxy. Earth was supposed to be a simple resource acquisition, strip the planet of rare minerals and move on. The natives were expected to surrender immediately upon seeing the might of a Raxan fleet. Instead, they had fought back and won. "The human communications we intercepted," Trell said, turning to his intelligence officer. "Translate them again." Officer Marn nodded, her cranial ridges flushing purple with stress. "They're using some kind of military code, but we've broken parts of it. There are references to something called Project Sentinel and Operation Gatekeeper." "They knew we were coming, Overseer," Trell hissed in frustration. "How?" "Our approach was shielded. We've been observing them for years without detection." "Unknown, sir, but there's more." Marn hesitated. "Their counterattack didn't just destroy our fleet. They've somehow accessed our navigational data. They know the locations of our core worlds." A cold dread settled in Trell's thoracic cavity. The humans weren't just defending. They were preparing to strike back. "The Council must be informed immediately," he said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. "Earth isn't just another conquest. These humans, they're different." As he spoke, another alert flashed across the display. Earth's defense network was powering up again, but this time, it was reconfiguring. The energy signatures suggested weapons of immense power, far beyond what they had used to destroy the fleet. "They're preparing a jump," gasped Vex. "Their ships are forming up. Overseer, they're not waiting for us to return. They're launching an offensive." Trell stared at the tactical display, watching as hundreds of human vessels appeared from hidden locations around their solar system. They had been preparing for this, perhaps for decades. "Send word to all Raxan territories," Trell ordered, his voice grave. "All fleets are to converge on the homeworld. Full defensive protocols." As his crew rushed to obey, Trell continued to watch the human armada forming up. For the first time in his 300-cycle life, he felt something unfamiliar. Fear, not of defeat. The Raxan had tasted defeat before, but of something far worse. Extinction. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were coming to end the Raxan threat permanently. The Grand Council chamber of the Raxan Imperium had never been so silent. 12 overseers, including Trell, sat around the obsidian table, each lost in their own thoughts as they processed the unthinkable. The Raxan military machine, undefeated for centuries, had suffered a catastrophic loss against a species they had considered barely worth noting in their conquest ledgers. "The human fleet has already secured 3 of our outer mining colonies," reported Overseer Kraz, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "They're moving with unprecedented speed and coordination." Trell watched Supreme Leader Dorn, the eldest and most powerful of their kind. Dorn's scales had grayed with age, but his mind remained as sharp as the ceremonial blade at his hip. For the first time, Trell saw uncertainty in his leader's eyes. "How did we miss this?" Dorn finally spoke, his question directed at no one in particular. How did we fail to see their true capabilities? Overseer Mal, head of intelligence, shifted uncomfortably. The humans have been deceiving us. Their public broadcasts, their visible technology, all of it was a facade. They've been developing in secret, possibly for decades. But why? Asked Kraz. Why hide their advancement? Trell had been asking himself the same question since witnessing the destruction of Commander Draz's fleet. The answer that kept coming to him was disturbing. They knew we were watching, he said quietly, drawing all eyes to him. Somehow, they detected our observation posts. They've known about us, possibly about our conquest patterns, for longer than we realized. Everything they showed us was calculated to make us underestimate them. Dorn's primary eyes narrowed. You're suggesting they laid a trap for us? I believe so, Supreme Leader. And we walked right into it. The chamber erupted in angry hisses and denials. The very idea that a lesser species could outmaneuver the Raxan was offensive to their core beliefs. Silence. Dorn's voice cut through the chaos. When order had been restored, he turned to his military advisor. What options do we have? Overseer Jex, a battle-scarred veteran, activated the central holographic display. Our main fleet is still intact, Supreme Leader. We can launch a full-scale counteroffensive. The humans may have advanced technology, but they can't match our numbers. And yet, Trell interjected, they didn't just defeat Draz's fleet. They annihilated it with minimal losses. Numbers may not be enough. Jex's scales flushed with anger. Are you suggesting surrender, Overseer Trell? I'm suggesting caution. Trell replied evenly. We don't understand what we're facing yet. Dorn raised a hand, ending the brewing argument. What about diplomacy? Have the humans made any demands? Mal activated a communication panel. They sent this message after securing our mining colonies. A human appeared on the display. It wore some kind of military uniform, its hairless face set in a stern expression. Raxan Imperium. The human spoke in perfectly translated Raxan language, another shock to the Council. Your unprovoked aggression against Earth has been met with appropriate response. We are now dismantling your capacity to wage war. This is not negotiable. Your choice is simple. Recall all forces to your homeworld and cease all military operations or face extinction. The message ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. They're giving us an ultimatum, Kraz finally said, disbelief in her voice. Dorn's expression had hardened into something unreadable. Trell recognized the struggle taking place within his leader. Pride versus survival. Tradition versus necessity. Supreme Leader, Trell said carefully, I believe we must consider a third option. Neither full surrender nor suicidal resistance. All eyes turned to him once more. Speak, Overseer Trell, Dorn commanded. We need to understand our enemy before we can defeat them. I propose a new strategy, one the Raxan have never employed before. Infiltration. Supreme Leader Dorn's voice carried equal parts skepticism and intrigue as he considered Trell's proposal. The Raxan do not hide. We conquer. Trell stood firm before the council, aware that his suggestion bordered on heresy to their warrior culture. With respect, Supreme Leader, our traditional methods have failed against the humans. We need to adapt. The holographic display showed the advancing human fleet, methodically securing Raxan outposts across 3 star systems. Their tactics were unlike anything the Imperium had encountered. Precision strikes followed by immediate fortification, leaving no opportunity for counterattack. Explain your strategy more precisely, Overseer Trell, Dorn commanded, leaning forward slightly, a sign that he was genuinely listening. Trell activated his personal data pad, projecting a new series of schematics. The humans have one critical weakness. They don't know what we look like. This statement caused confusion among the council members. Overseer Jex snorted derisively. Of course they do. We've engaged them in battle. No, Trell countered. They've seen our ships, our technology, but never a Raxan in the flesh. Our protocols have always prevented visual contact during conquests. A tradition meant to inspire fear has now become our advantage. Understanding began to dawn on several council members' faces. Overseer Mal nodded slowly. You propose to use biological disguises to make our operatives appear human. Precisely, Trell confirmed. Our xenobiology division has been studying human physiology since we first discovered their planet. We can create synthetic coverings that will allow selected operatives to pass as human. The chamber filled with murmurs, some outrage, others thoughtful. This is cowardice. Jex spat. Raxam warriors do not hide behind false skins. Dorn silenced him with a sharp gesture. Continue, Trell. A small team of our best intelligence officers, disguised as humans, could infiltrate their military and scientific facilities. We need to understand how they advanced so quickly, how they detected our presence, and most importantly, identify weaknesses in their defense systems. Trell brought up another display showing a detailed timeline. Meanwhile, we appear to comply with their demands. We recall our visible forces, creating the illusion of submission while our infiltrators gather critical intelligence. Kraz, who had been silent until now, spoke up. And if these infiltrators are discovered, they would be equipped with neural disruptors. Trell replied grimly. No trace of Raxan technology or biology would remain for the humans to study. The council chamber fell silent as the implications of this strategy sank in. The Raxan had always relied on overwhelming force. Subterfuge was alien to their nature. Yet the evidence of human capabilities glowed ominously on the display before them. After what seemed like an eternity, Supreme Leader Dorn rose from his seat, his ancient scales gleaming under the chamber lights. Overseer Trell, your strategy violates centuries of Raxan military doctrine. He began, his voice resonating with authority. Trell prepared himself for dismissal, possibly even punishment. But Dorn continued. And yet, I cannot deny its potential merit in these unprecedented circumstances. Jex began to protest, but Dorn silenced him with a cold stare. Our choice is between adaptation and extinction. Overseer Jex, I choose adaptation. Turning back to Trell, Dorn made his decree. You will personally oversee this operation. Trell, select your team, develop these disguises, and prepare for immediate deployment to human territory. Supreme Leader, Trell acknowledged, bowing deeply. While Trell's infiltration team gathers intelligence, Dorn addressed the rest of the council. We will implement a strategy of apparent compliance and covert preparation. Recall our visible fleets as demanded, but begin construction of new vessels in the shadow nebulas of the Krell sector. Disperse our remaining forces to hidden outposts in neutral territories. The Supreme Leader's eyes narrowed. The humans believe they have defeated the Raxan Imperium. We will allow them this illusion while we learn to become what we have never been before. Patient. As the council session concluded, Trell remained behind, studying the human fleet movements. Their precision continued to impress and disturb him. They think like us, he murmured to himself. Perhaps too much like us. A troubling thought occurred to him, one he dared not share even with Supreme Leader Dorn. What if the humans were also sending infiltrators? 3 standard cycles had passed since Operation Shadowskin began. Trell stood before the emergency session of the Grand Council, his scaled skin dry with stress beneath his ceremonial armor. The news he brought would change the course of the Raxan Imperium forever. The infiltration was successful beyond our expectations, he reported, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. All 12 of our operatives successfully penetrated human society in various locations. Supreme Leader Dorn nodded approvingly. And their findings. Trell activated the central display, showing an anatomical diagram of a human. First, we confirmed that the humans are indeed fully biological, not synthetic as some had theorized. However, he paused, struggling to find the right words. Speak freely, Overseer, Dorn commanded. The humans are not what we thought they were. Trell expanded the display to show brain scans. Their neural architecture is unlike anything in our records. They possess a unique form of adaptive intelligence. They learn at an exponential rate when faced with existential threats. Overseer Mao leaned forward. Are you suggesting their rapid technological advancement was triggered by detecting our presence? Exactly that, Trell confirmed. Our operative embedded in their military archives discovered records dating back nearly 50 Earth years. They detected our long-range observation probes decades ago, but chose to hide this knowledge. Instead, they redirected their entire civilization's resources toward preparing for potential extraterrestrial threats, specifically us. The council chamber filled with hisses of disbelief. There's more, Trell continued grimly. They've been studying us as thoroughly as we've been studying them. The human military had already cataloged 19 different Raxan conquest patterns before we ever approached their solar system. Dorn's scales darkened with anger. How is this possible? Our observation protocols were compromised, Trell finished. The humans developed quantum entanglement sensors capable of detecting our cloaked observation posts. Every time we watched them, they were watching us back. The implications settled heavily on the council. For centuries, the Raxan had believed themselves the unseen observers of the galaxy, selecting targets at will, studying weaknesses before striking. The idea that a target had reversed this dynamic was almost incomprehensible. What of their weakness? Jex demanded. Surely your operatives discovered something we can exploit. Trell hesitated. Their primary weakness is also their greatest strength, their diversity. Humans have no unified government, no single command structure. They are divided into nations, factions, even competing ideologies. That should make them easy to conquer, Kraz interjected. We could exploit these divisions. Under normal circumstances, yes, Trell agreed. But when faced with an external threat, us, they unite with remarkable efficiency. Their diversity becomes an advantage, generating countless approaches to problem solving, accelerating their adaptation. He brought up new data on the display. Most concerning of all, one of our operatives discovered this in their military research facility. The council stared at the schematics of a weapon system that seemed impossible, a device capable of collapsing subspace around a target fleet, effectively trapping ships in a pocket dimension where they would be cut off from normal spacetime. They call it the Void Cage, Trell explained. It's still theoretical, but their scientists believe it will be operational within 1 Earth year. If deployed, our entire remaining fleet could be neutralized in a single engagement. Supreme Leader Dorn sat motionless, processing the gravity of this information. When he finally spoke, his voice was unnaturally quiet. What do your operatives recommend, Overseer Trell? Trell took a deep breath. 7 of the 12 recommend immediate and unconditional peace negotiations. 3 suggest complete withdrawal from this sector of the galaxy. 2, he paused. 2 did not report back. Captured? Asked Mal with alarm. We believe so. Their neural disruptors were activated, but not before one managed to send a final message. Trell's voice grew even more serious. The humans are aware of our infiltration. Not only that, they expected it. They allowed some of our operatives to access controlled information they wanted us to find. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Centuries of Raxan military dominance had been built on the certainty of their superiority. Now they faced an enemy that had outmaneuvered them at every turn. Enough. Dorn's voice cut through the pandemonium. When silence had been restored, he turned to Trell. Your recommendation, Overseer. Trell straightened to his full height, knowing his next words might be considered treason by some. I recommend genuine negotiations, Supreme Leader. Not as a deception, but with sincere intent. The humans have demonstrated that they can match and counter our military strategies. Our only path to survival may be cooperation rather than conquest. Jex rose from his seat in outrage. This is surrender. No enemy has ever destroyed our fleets with such ease. Dorn interrupted, his ancient eyes fixed on the display showing the human weapon. No enemy has ever infiltrated our intelligence so thoroughly. The Supreme Leader rose from his ceremonial chair, suddenly looking older than Trell had ever seen him. "Prepare a communication to the human leadership," Dorn ordered. "I will speak to them directly." The diplomatic vessel Eternal Vigilance hung in neutral space, its polished hull reflecting the light of an unremarkable yellow star. Inside, Trell adjusted his formal vestments nervously, an emotion he had rarely experienced before encountering humans. "The human delegation has docked," Overseer reported his aide. "Supreme Leader Dorn awaits you in the Grand Chamber." Trell nodded and made his way through the corridors of the vessel, passing Raxan guards standing at rigid attention. 6 standard cycles had passed since his fateful council presentation, and today would determine whether those cycles of careful negotiation would bear fruit or lead to further conflict. The Grand Chamber had been specially modified for this historic meeting. One half featured the traditional raised obsidian platforms preferred by Raxan dignitaries. The other contained furnishings designed for human comfort, a gesture of accommodation that would have been unthinkable in previous eras of the Imperium. Supreme Leader Dorn stood with 3 other council members, their ceremonial armor gleaming under the chamber lights. Despite the appearance of strength, Trell knew the truth. The Raxan military had continued to suffer losses in strategic locations. The human void cage technology, once theoretical, had been deployed twice with devastating effect. "They approach," Dorn said quietly as Trell took his place. "Remember, we are here to secure the survival of our species, not our pride." The chamber doors slid open, and the human delegation entered. Trell studied them carefully. 5 individuals of varying appearance, a testament to the diversity he had reported to the council. Leading them was Admiral Vance, the same human who had delivered the initial ultimatum to the Raxan Imperium. "Supreme Leader Dorn," Vance acknowledged with a formal bow that had been carefully choreographed during preliminary negotiations. "The United Earth government appreciates this opportunity for direct dialogue." Dorn returned the gesture with a Raxan salute. "The Imperium welcomes you to neutral space, Admiral Vance. Let us proceed with the formalization of our agreement." The delegations took their respective positions, and holographic displays activated between them, showing the draft treaty that had been developed through months of careful, often tense, remote negotiations. The Treaty of Proxima, as we have come to call it, began the human diplomat named Rivera, establishes new parameters for Raxan and human interaction throughout the galaxy. Overseer Mal, now serving as chief negotiator, activated his datapad. "We have reviewed the final terms and find them acceptable, with one remaining point of clarification regarding technological exchange protocols in Article 7. As the diplomats delved into the final details, Trell found himself studying Admiral Vance. The human's eyes occasionally met his, and Trell sensed something familiar in that gaze, the calculated assessment of a natural predator. It reminded him uncomfortably of Supreme Leader Dorn in his younger days. After 2 full-time units of discussion, the treaty was finalized. Its terms were unprecedented in Raxan history, defined territorial boundaries, non-aggression pacts, controlled technological exchange, and a framework for resolving future disputes through a neutral council comprised of both species. Supreme Leader Dorn rose to deliver the formal acceptance. For 7,000 cycles, the Raxan Imperium has expanded through conquest. Today, we chart a different course, one of coexistence rather than subjugation. Admiral Vance stood as well. Humanity came to the stars prepared for war, but we remain open to peace when genuine opportunity arises. This treaty represents such an opportunity. The formalities concluded with the application of genetic signatures to the treaty documents. As the human delegation prepared to depart, Admiral Vance approached Trell directly. "Overseer Trell," the human acknowledged, "your reputation precedes you." 1 standard Raxan year after the Treaty of Proxima, Trell found himself in unfamiliar territory, both literally and figuratively. The human space station Harmony orbited a gas giant in the neutral zone established by the treaty, its gleaming modular structures unlike the monolithic designs favored by Raxan architects. "The Joint Science Team is ready for your inspection," Overseer reported his aide, Lynn, a younger Raxan who had been specifically selected for her adaptability to new situations. Trell nodded, adjusting the environmental controls on his suit. The station maintained atmospheric conditions suitable for humans, requiring Raxan visitors to wear adaptation suits that humidified the air to their preference. "This integration experiment remains controversial among the Council," he reminded Lynn as they walked toward the laboratory section. "Its success or failure may determine our species' future relationship." The Treaty of Proxima had established peace, but true cooperation was proving more challenging. Supreme Leader Dorn, showing unexpected foresight, had proposed a series of joint scientific ventures as a means of building trust, while simultaneously assessing human capabilities more directly. The laboratory doors slid open, revealing a sight unprecedented in galactic history. Raxan and human scientists working side by side, examining data streams and manipulating holographic models. Leading the Raxan contingent was Dr. Mex, a brilliant xenobiologist who had been instrumental in developing the infiltration disguises for Operation Shadowskin. Overseer Trell. Mex acknowledged with a formal salute. "Welcome to Project Synthesis." The human lead scientist, Dr. Reeves, approached with a respectful nod. "Overseer, we're honored by your presence. Would you like an overview of our progress?" "Please," Trell replied, noting how the human maintained precise eye contact with his primary eyes, a cultural adaptation that had been included in the diplomatic protocols. Dr. Reeves activated the central display system. "As you know, both our species face similar challenges with resource-depleted worlds from our earlier industrial development phases. Project Synthesis focuses on combining Raxan atmospheric manipulation technology with human biogenetic engineering to create a scalable planetary restoration system." The display showed simulations of devastated planetary surfaces gradually transforming into habitable environments through the application of engineered microorganisms and atmospheric converters. "The results have been remarkable," Dr. Mex added, a hint of genuine excitement in her voice. "The human genetic sequencing methods complement our atmospheric technology in ways we hadn't anticipated. Regeneration rates are 47% higher than either approach could achieve independently." Trell studied the data carefully. "Time to habitability. For a standard depleted world, approximately 8 years, Dr. Reeves answered. "Without this combined approach, the Raxan method would take 14 years, and our human methods would require nearly 20.